Welcome everyone to another episode of the Global CTE podcast, where it is our desire to wrap a goodwill around the career tech education community and share best practices and insights from professionals who are really doing the work. Today, we have a wonderful treat. My good friend, Sherry Loftin, is here today on the show. Let me tell you about Sherry. Sherry is the Associate Director of Learning Delivery at Digital Promise for the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. Now, Digital Promise is a national nonprofit that is authorized by Congress to spur innovation in education and improve the opportunity to learn for all. Sherry works with the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, which is a partnership between Verizon and Digital Promise. She has trained over 10,000 educators and school leaders across the nation on emerging technologies and innovation in the classroom with Verizon Innovative Learning. Prior to her role, she worked as an educator in the Chicago public school system for over 8 years. Now, Verizon Innovative Learning Schools receive extensive teacher training, support, and the opportunity to engage in a unique, immersive curriculum to leverage technology in their classrooms. Since 2012, Verizon Innovative Learning Schools and Digital Promise have impacted over 480,000 students, 28,000 teachers, and over 561 schools. Schools selected received nearly $2 million in resources. Stay tuned to the end so you can learn how your school can possibly get involved. Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sylvester. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited about having you here, like just to talk about the level of innovation, the level of innovation. Like you guys are really on the front end with what you're doing in the work. So I just want to jump right into it. What problem in education do you feel like you and your Verizon Innovative Learning team is working to solve?
We're definitely working to solve the digital divide. And we want to support students all over the U.S. with having digital inclusion. We're seeing that too many students don't have connectivity or devices anytime, anywhere. So they may have it intermittently, maybe when they're at school at some point, but we want students to not only have that access, but we want them to have the digital skills. So the work we're doing with Verizon Innovative Learning is part of Verizon's Citizen Verizon goal. And what they're trying to do is really reach 10 million students and have them provided with digital skills by 2030. So one way that we do that is with Verizon Innovative Learning. And that is where we're going into middle schools, we're going into some high schools, and we're making sure that students have that access, and then they have this access to powerful learning experiences that give them agency to practice, see themselves in STEM and STEAM careers, and explore the possibilities of this next iteration.
That is really important work that you all are doing. Thank you for doing that work. I'm curious. You mentioned STEAM and STEM. Can you talk to me more about like the sort of educational activities or what happens around those sorts of things in your schools?
Absolutely. So when we go in, we're supporting teachers into recreating the classroom. So as far as we want all of the different subject areas to feel empowered to integrate technology, but we also want to provide students with partnerships where they're able to have partnerships with folks at Verizon, have partnerships with folks in the outside world where they're able to see how those folks how they accessed the opportunities to get into the STEM careers that they have. We have different things where we have career days, and we partner in that way with other professionals on the outside. But another thing that's really cool is that once schools are in with us, they then can apply to have these really beautiful Verizon Innovative Learning Labs. And those labs, we go in and we redo a whole space in a school. So we're talking about a complete Maker Lab. We're talking about digital 3D printing. We're talking about AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D VR glasses. We're having all these opportunities in that space, robotics, and then we also provide a curriculum to go with it, so that teachers know how to be able to bring their classrooms in and make something and create. So we want them to get really scrappy and just play and really build their imagination in those.
I was watching one of the videos from Newburgh Middle School, and I saw Mr. William Pierce of Jefferson County Public Schools. He was talking, and one of the things that stood out to me, he said, "This is about your labs." He said, "This is the doing of learning." And then I saw the kids really exploring and working with the 3D printers and the VR and the AR. So talk to me about how you all are thinking about this education in the classroom, in your labs, and how it's helping to prepare students for the careers of the future.
Right. So what we want is for students, the last thing we want is that students go through their entire schooling and come out and say, "I'm not prepared. I wasted all that time," because time is the most expensive thing we have, right? That's the most valuable thing we have. And so what we want is that students are actually developing these skills right now. They're solving problems in their communities right now through their curriculum. We want them to be coming up. We have all these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and all these problems in the world that we want to solve. We have these good minds in the classroom. Why we don't need pretend projects. We need real projects. We need you all to go figure something out now. You don't have to wait until you're 25 to start a business. You can start a business now. And that's what we're noticing as students are getting empowered. They're learning to make websites. They're learning to do all these different things. And what are they doing? Going into the community, helping to build a website for their cousin who's selling something, doing things now that are addressing issues. So that's what we really are liking to see. And that's what we want more of. Student agency is our big thing.
I love it. So okay, let's just stay in that pocket there. I want to hear some more success stories, like any other success stories besides the one that I just mentioned from the video.
Yeah, so I really like to talk about, there's so many, but one that really spoke to me was in Miles Park in Cleveland. So okay. They are doing some really amazing things in their school. When they brought in this new type of learning, students were able to access learning in a new way, and they were starting to make things. So it really changed the mindsets of a lot of students. They were really excited. They're using virtual reality and just coming up with new things, and it really changed the culture in the school too. So it wasn't such a situation where it's like, I'm just giving you information. It's top down, boom, boom, boom. Now students were able to break out of their shell, come into their creativity. Teachers were able to do what they signed up to do. See students have those aha moments and really help them along the way. And the way that it's changed the school and the culture has been incredible. And the leadership there is so on point with really nurturing the teachers and the students to become what they want to be. So I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's wonderful to hear. Now I'm going to give you some pushback here. Okay. Now what happens? It sounds amazing. Like, oh, we need to prepare the kids for the future. New technology, VR, AR, 3D printers. But logistically, talk to me about implementation. Do you find like, what are some best practices around maybe implementing these things in the school, or how do you all do it if someone becomes a school partner?
Yes, and I think that's so important what you brought up too, as far as the pushback and the implementation, because I'll be real with you, especially when we start to talk about the overwork of teachers and the way what's happening there. I've been in Chicago. I used to be a card carrying member of the Chicago Teachers Union. I still have on red right now. right? And so the last thing we want to do is create a situation where teachers are not only already working more than their contract hours, but working another 20 hours on top of that, trying to figure out what to do to recreate things. We want to make sure we're empowering teachers while they're at school and how to do that. So, and we want to make it exciting to where it's something that people do, that they're drawn to do, even on as a hobby. So some things we do with the implementation is we actually have consultants who are really good at supporting schools in the change management. When you're thinking about any type of new initiative or any new idea of changing the way that instruction happens in a school, you're dealing with so many different personalities and people who've done things before in a certain way, and then also people who've seen initiatives come and go, and they don't want to play these games with you. So we support schools in the change management aspects. How do you get your early adopters excited and galvanized? How do you create value early on for people? We help them every step of the way, and we have people go physically to the schools, meet with the administrators, meet with the instructional coaches at the schools, train the teachers. It's a all hands on deck support, wraparound support that we're providing. So we have that. We have those partners that go out to the schools and support in that way of over years.
And that's for the schools who are selected as Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, correct?
So when they come, they're here with us for 2 years. Some schools stay for longer when they're here. But it's a 2-year commitment that we're developing. We have those folks who go out and support in that way. We also have the IT support. So we have the change management implementation support, but also the IT implementation support. So we have folks on our team who were previous CTOs of their technology in their school districts, and they're harnessing all this knowledge that they have from their previous careers, and they were bringing it here, and then we're pulling all of the best practices from all of the districts nationwide that we're working with. I mean, we have over 90 districts nationwide that we're working with, rural, urban, everything in between, right? And so we're able to see that and say, hey, here, you now have all of our best minds here with your.
So you just brought it up, because that's, as you're talking, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. Let's talk education equity a little here. Is the school selection process, is that something you all are intentional about, trying to find the schools who maybe don't have these technological advances, or who could use some support maybe in our urban and rural areas across America?
Absolutely. So we want to support the students in our rural and urban areas, like you said. So we try to make sure that we're supporting schools with resources who may not have as many resources as other schools. So we're looking to see, okay, do you have a certain percentage of your students with a free and reduced price lunch? That's one way that we make sure that the supports we're giving are equitably distributed amongst all of our bright minds out there. That's really the crux of it. We want to make sure that we are having these resources go in places where those resources deserve to be.
Now, I'm curious, why do you think that's important? Like, in terms of just the long-term competitiveness of the American economy, and like preparing this next generation of students from all across America. I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Okay, here's my thoughts on this, Sylvester, and I'm going to be real with you. We talk about, oh, we need to prepare the students for 21st century skills and all those things. Yes. These students that we're teaching today are going to be retiring closer to the 22nd century. So what are we talking about? They're going to be retiring close to 2100. We won't even be around. Well, who are we to sit here and talk about the way it was done in the 1900s when we were in school? We were in school in the 1900s. The students of today are going into an economy and a world in which we have never seen. And if we care for our students the way we say we do, and I know we do, then we're going to make sure that we prepare them for things unseen, right? That's a little bit of faith that you have to have, the things unseen, and we're preparing them for that. And we want to make sure that their skills are marketable. We can't have our students, if you can get on a device or do this and do that within 3 seconds, and have our students like, wait a minute, what do you do? How do you do that? And see, another thing, people assume a lot of times that students, they are digital natives and they just know everything about technology, but some of them don't realize the power they have in their hand, the power they have, right? And the power in a cell phone is more technology than what they used to go to the moon back when they first did, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I just had Pat Brown on the podcast. He's a CTE director, and he was saying, like, now literally knowledge is at the fingertips. So it's not just about like the facts, but it's more about the application of the facts, the application of the technology, preparing our kids with those critical thinking skills and the exploring and all of those things that it sounds like you all are doing a great job of with your school partners.
Exactly. I want to jump on that because it's always been about the application. You have knowledge, you have understanding, and then you have wisdom, right? Yes. And them being able to apply that in new situations, that's that wisdom that we all want, no matter if you're using technology or not. That's what you want for your students. And so that's so important too, because when we're helping to change mindsets about how we can do this in the classroom, that also comes, we talk about that student agency, and having students to make things. But that's what we really want. We want them to be the ones driving that, to be the ones making decisions. And that is a big mind shift change in many places, because there's a lot that goes on as far as power and control. When we talk
to me more about student agency and maybe some best practices around incorporating more of that into the classroom or across the school district.
Yes. And so when we talk about student agency, we can't talk about that without talking about power and control in the classroom. Power in the classroom. Who holds it, and what are we doing with it? And so when we talk about agency, we can't have our students be empowered without making sure we have the mindset shift change to be able to share that power with the students. And so we want to be able to share the power, give them the opportunities to make mistakes and all those different things. And so when we go in and we have these professional learning opportunities, that's helping to have folks think and negotiate what this could look like in my classroom. Teachers, the thing is that people from the outside will come in with all these things that they want to see in schools, but they don't understand being in a classroom, at the helm of a classroom, is another world. Like, just imagine the world you live in and just imagine another one, and everyone. And so the teachers know that at the end of the day, there are going to be people in front of them and they're going to have to go. So they want to have that community space to be able to talk about how this could work in a classroom where I'm keeping students safe psychologically, physically. How do I free these things up to do that? So another big part of our program is the community aspect. So
say more about the community. Say more.
The community is huge, because the thing is, when you're talking about joining a community of over 480,000 educators, a lot of times in a school, you might be the only subject person for your grade level, and you can't really talk to other people about that. But you can join our community. We have online spaces for educators to talk, share resources, best practices, and they love it. Our Twitter chats, just all sorts of things where folks can have that community. We have community for not only the teachers, but also for administrators, for our administrators in the school building, for our district leaders. We have these places where they can come together and talk in spaces that weren't available for them. And that's where they feel that sense of, I can let my hair down and have a real conversation and get a real answer, and not right.
And it helps so much to have someone, because it can feel lonely, or you can feel isolated as a leader in education, or even as a teacher. You're thinking you're the only one dealing with this problem, or maybe the people even at your school, they're not fully understanding the depth of the problem. But when you're connecting with the resource like that, a large community where, hey, we dealt with that, let me tell you how we handled it. Like, those are, like someone can solve the right who can solve your problems so much faster. And you just made me think about something. That was one of the points. I just recently did the keynote for the South Dakota Career Tech Education Conference, and one of the things I said was, if you want to make this the worst school year of your life, don't have community.
Oh,
Don't try to add value to the community, and don't try to build community with others to try to help solve your problems, right? So I'm like, if you want to flip to the other side of that, then try to find ways to add value to others, connect with other like-minded people so that you're not isolated or siloed in the work that you're doing.
You can't be silent here. And the thing is that it's safe spaces, having those safe spaces, because we deal with so much important information as far as student privacy and different things like that. So there's a lot of space where you go where you can't just say what's on your mind, as an educator, as a school leader. So that community piece becomes really
now you just brought up something. You just said student privacy. So I'm going to go another step on that student privacy, because we're talking technology, Verizon, the whole bit. Talk to me about your thoughts on artificial intelligence and how that can potentially elevate the things that we're doing in education. And then on the backside of that, what are some things we need to be concerned about, like privacy?
Oh my gosh, that is the question. That is the question of the day right now, because first of all, artificial intelligence is already here. And a lot of times people are thinking, when they think about artificial intelligence, they just think of robots, right? But it's already here in the way that we're doing things. And what it can do in the classroom is going to be next level. As far as when we think about the classroom, and we think about all the decisions a teacher is making, they're making hundreds of decisions in a classroom. There's so many data points, this student, this, there's a lot that you can see and notice as a human, but artificial intelligence has the opportunity to give us data points and insights into our own behavior and human behavior, which we have never seen before. And it can help us to make better decisions, better instructional decisions and choices. I'm really excited to see on so many levels what this can do for teachers, as far as teacher preparation even. So teachers going into the profession. So a lot of times in urban education, what I like to say, and I made this up, is if your plans aren't tight, there will be a fight. So meaning
that's a good one. I love it.
You need to go in and you need to make sure it is highly engaging, interesting, and your instruction is on point, right? And the way that you're setting this up. But with newer teachers, you'll find that the majority of what they struggle with is behavior and classroom management. And that is what drives them out of the industry quickly, before 5 years. And a lot of times when I see behavior issues as a coach, a previous instructional coach and administrator, a lot of times what I've noticed is that it's not the behavior for those students necessarily, is that a lot of behavior issues are neurodivergency needs unmet. So as teachers are able to learn more about the different ways their students think, supporting their students with autism, with ADHD, with a gamut of different things and ways of being, that helps them to create these learning experiences that keep students engaged and make sure that their needs are met, and that we're not inadvertently leaving students out and not allowing them to have that access. And artificial intelligence can help with that. We can provide
like
immersive.
how? Give me like how?
Let's start with immersive experiences. So if they're going in, and let's say we're thinking about teacher training, let's rethink teacher training. What if we could put on some VR glasses and recreate a classroom where you can practice what you would do with students, but they're not actual students. Like the students aren't there. So whatever missteps you take, it's not harming anyone. You have the opportunity to practice without creating any harm to any real students. And now when you go in front of students, you are that much more equipped and you have that many more pieces of experience, because that experience is what separates a master teacher from a novice. So what if we gave more opportunities to have that with
we're pulling maybe even particular data points that lead to success from the master teachers to share like best practices, even greater depth of best practices for newer teachers to get them ramped up earlier in terms of being closer to the master teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting, Sherry. You're really I'm like really excited about the future as it relates to artificial intelligence, and the positive impacts that it can make on education experiences for our students, to make it more engaging and the instruction easier for teachers, that sort of thing. But talk to me what do you think about some things we should be concerned about, like privacy? You mentioned that.
Yeah, and that's the big one, because in order for any type of artificial intelligence to work, it breathes on data, right? It breathes on data. And so, well, when these companies, a lot of these companies that are creating artificial intelligence, they're startup companies, they're scrappy, they're innovative, but but the thing that goes with brand new companies or innovative companies like that is that it's a startup. So it may fall apart, and there might be a lot of turnover. And like, let's say the folks who are over things regarding student data or anything like that, let's say they leave for another ambition, and there's no continuity on how we're protecting this data. We don't have any strong guardrails in place yet for these new companies to make sure that they're respecting and upholding their end of the bargain when it comes to protecting the student data. So we have
to, I think we have to, those companies moving into education with, artificial intelligence or big data stuff, like we just have to be careful about how it's implemented and making sure those privacy standards are maintained.
And I would advise one thing to school leaders is to ask questions. So ask questions and really put that pressure on those companies, because what happens, there's a short turnaround to the feedback and the iteration in the product development and the reiteration. And so by asking those questions to those companies to make sure, okay, have you signed the student privacy signatory, or your signatory of the student privacy pledge? What are you doing here? Like, asking those questions helps to have those companies go back and really rethink what they're doing in that respect. I think another thing we need to do for everyone is just have a whole is having an information campaign, so that people in general really understand what we mean when we talk about artificial intelligence. There's so many it. You have the machine learning aspect, you have all these different, the natural language processing aspect, you have all these different aspects of the artificial intelligence. But people are just thinking like robots, they're going to take my job,
and it's so much more. Yeah, so much more to it than that. Like, once you get around some of the fear of that, especially as we're thinking about it for our kids and preparing the next generation to be successful in the global marketplace. But with that being said, because I know you care about like education equity and inclusion, all of those things, I'm curious, any best practices or a piece of advice for teachers who want to support neurodivergent students and increase accessibility?
Yes, I love that you asked that question because for teachers always want to meet students where they are and do the best thing that's going to help their students. But I think one thing that we can really think about is understanding some of those big tenets and really understanding universal design for learning. So here's some things that we can do in the classroom. When we do things that support our students, we're doing things like our neurodivergent students, we're doing things that support all of our students. So have you heard of the curb cut effect?
No, I'm not familiar with that. No.
So we have something called the curb cut effect. So when they created that, when they had the legislation to make those curb cuts. That was a huge push, and they thought it was only for folks who were disabled. But what they found was that once they created those curb cuts in so many places, that it wasn't just helping folks who were in a wheelchair, it was helping people who were pushing a stroller, bike riders, runners, all types of folks who didn't realize they needed this. It's the thing that I didn't even know I wanted, but I'm glad I got. And so when it comes to accessibility, what's good for the goose is good for the gamet. When you do something to help the neurodivergent students, you're helping all of the students succeed. So if it's as simple as having captions, folks with ADHD, they have working memory issues. So it could be a student who's very bright in so many areas. They keep forgetting what just happened because their working memory is off, right? They're the ones who are going to ask you all these questions and make you be like, whoo, that was a rough day. I know I am a neurodivergent person. I have ADHD. Yeah. And so when you have simple things like captions, it helps them to remember those things and they can stay on track. Or if you have something like speech to text, and now you have a neurodivergent student who can now write their thoughts because they're not forgetting their thoughts from the time they thought about it to the time they wrote it. Like they haven't forgot their thoughts that fast. That's why a lot of times neurodivergent students with ADHD have horrible handwriting because they're trying to hurry up and write it down before they forget it.
I'm so grateful that you shared those in-depth insights, because like those are the logistical things that you can try to support students with in your classroom, or even just having the time and the space for them to maybe do things differently and not assume that all students need to do it this one particular way. But it's like, no, how can there's more than one way to get to the end goal, whether it's speech to text or just giving someone more time, or adding captions to videos, or asynchronous content, that sort of thing. That's powerful that you just brought up, Sherry. So look, okay, we've talked about a lot here. We've talked about accessibility. We talked about education equity, the work that you and your team are doing at the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, like, is incredible. So I know some people who are listening now, they're curious, how can they sign up? How can they become a part of this program, apply? Give us the details.
Yes, so we do have our applications open for schools now. And so when they apply, we're looking for schools who, middle schools and high schools can apply, but specifically middle schools. And we're looking for schools where they have a certain percentage of free and reduced lunch. So when we look for schools like that, we want to make sure that we're giving those equitable resources to everyone who would be able to qualify for that. So right now we have our applications open until October, and they can go to our website, and let me get you the website, and let me get you the email. So our website is verizon.digitalpromise.org. And so they can go there, they can click join, and they can start the process. And it's okay if they don't know if they qualified or not. We have frequently asked questions on there, and we can work through that process. So if they want to go ahead and start that process, we'll reach out to them. And we really encourage school leaders, district leaders to support and see what schools that they can have in their district that would qualify, and that they could put on the application together so that we can get those resources to them.
Share their website one more time.
Yes, it's verizon.digitalpromise.org.
I love it. Verizon.digitalpromise.org. Verizon.digitalpromise.org. Make sure you all share that. Go and visit it yourself. If you think your school would apply, this would be a good fit for your school. The resources are amazing, and I encourage anyone else to go and watch the outcomes. You all have a lot of videos out there of seeing those labs in the schools, and the students. I was excited to watch the students. They were talking about, I'm learning math and virtual reality all at the same time. So I mean, that's that interdisciplinary and really preparing these kids for the future. So
Yes,
listen,
I do want to point out
go ahead,
too,
Shay.
just sure that they understand everything that goes with that program is when they do join our program, and if they get approved, then they're getting devices for every student and every teacher with the internet inside of those devices. They're getting a full-time coach in their building to support them with instructional technology. They're getting professional learning for all of the teachers. They're getting implementation support that comes to their school to support them in the change management, and they're getting IT tech support. They're also getting a community of over 480,000 educators to support them along the way. And they're getting these access to partnerships. So when they're in, they now have the access to apply for a VILS lab. We have that partnership with Arizona State University and Heart of America. We have partnerships with SD Math and tons of partnerships and discovery education that now they're in, they have these opportunities. So it's a great way to, especially to conserve on resources as the federal funds are coming towards a close, and schools are trying to spend down. If we're thinking about really creative ways to maximize our resources, this is a great opportunity to do that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing all your insights and sharing this wonderful program with our community of listeners. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Sherry, thank you. If people want to find you on LinkedIn, is that something, or where would you like to direct people if they have more questions?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn at Sherry Loftin. I'm also on Twitter at Share Teaches Shy on Twitter. So come check me out. I'm around and I'm excited.
Outstanding. Well, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, like, and make a comment. And please go and sign up for this Verizon program. This is an incredible program, and I encourage everyone to look into it, take a deeper look. As I always say, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. See you on the next episode. Peace.